The fluorescent lights of Mercy General's neonatal intensive care unit had barely finished their slow flicker into full brightness when my mother stepped through the isolation curtain and refused to move another inch closer. "I'm not holding something broken," Margaret said, not loudly. Never loudly, but with the kind of quiet that makes a room hold its breath. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, her pearls catching the blue monitor glow, her eyes fixed not on my daughter, but on the wall above her head. "Some things aren't meant to be held, Elena. You should have listened." My baby, Sophia, born at 32 weeks, 3 pounds, breathing through tubes. I knew how to read but couldn't make disappear, made a small sound in her isolette. Not a cry, just presence, just the sound of being alive despite everything. I didn't respond. I'd spent 28 years learning that responding only made her louder. But my hands, my nurse's hands, the ones that had spent 15 years, holding other people's newborns, trembled as I adjusted. Sophia's blanket, the silver badge on my chest, glinted. Elena Whitmore Vasquez. RN, NICU lead. I'd earned it through night shifts and code blues and the kind of patience that costs something. Every time you use it. Then Margaret added, before turning to leave. Before the curtain closed behind her perfume. The sentence that changed everything. Don't ask me to pretend I don't know what she really is. I didn't understand it then. I thought she meant Sophia's health. Her size, her tubes. Some mothers can't look at fragility without seeing failure. But hours later, in a conference room, I knew too well. The one with the bad coffee and the chair that always squeaked. Dr. Patel explained why my mother had really refused to touch her granddaughter. And it wasn't about Sophia's health. It was about mine. Welcome back to Revenge Camera. Stories where the truth doesn't just survive in the dark. It learns to read its own medical file. If you've ever been told your child wasn't worthy of being held, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. I want to see how far stories like this travel. But let me back up 12 months. Before the refusal, before the ICU, before the conference room. Because that's the version of me. My mother never bothered to understand. We lived in the kind of house that looks perfect from the street. White trim, garden that won neighborhood awards. The kind of place people drive past and think, that family has it together. My mother, Margaret Whitmore Vasquez, directed that image with the precision of a stage manager. She chose the paint colors that photographed well. She arranged the furniture so guests never saw the worn spots. She told neighbors, my father was in consulting, never specifying that his consulting firm existed mostly to hide her. Financial mistakes through tax, structures I wasn't supposed to understand. My brother Nathan got the spotlight. Every birthday, every award, every promotion mentioned in holiday cards. When he forgot to call, she said he was busy. When I missed one dinner, she said I was selfish. By the time I was 16, I knew my role. Stay quiet, don't ruin the image, and never suggest that anything was wrong with the picture. I used to think if I worked harder, if I made the grades, got the nursing scholarship, earned the promotion, built the career, maybe she'd finally look at me the way she looked at him. But control doesn't stop when you succeed, it just changes form. That winter I noticed something I shouldn't have. A folder, left open on the kitchen. Counter when I came home from my nursing shift at Mercy, not hidden, just present. Like everything she did. Documents, transfer forms, property deeds, and something I recognized immediately. My nursing license number. Copied onto authorization forms I had never signed. I didn't say anything that night. I'd learned that asking questions only made the folder close faster. Then I got pregnant. Marcus, my husband, was excited. Not performative, not strategic. Just genuinely excited. He held my hand at every appointment. He read the baby books. He talked about nursery colors like they were architectural blueprints. He was honored to design. My mother was different. She smiled at announcements but never touched my belly. She asked about due dates but never about feelings. She commented on my weight, my clothing choices, whether I was ready for the responsibility, always framing it as concern, never cruelty, so I couldn't point to the wound without sounding ungrateful. By the 3rd trimester, Marcus noticed too. She's not planning anything good. Elena, he said one night, sitting on the edge of our bed. She's not asking about the baby. She's asking about your schedule. She's protective, I said, because that's what I'd been trained to say. She's controlling, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. Then Sophia came early. 32 weeks. Emergency delivery. Marcus held my hand through it. Not his mother. Not my father, just Marcus, steady, present, the only person in that room who never made me feel like I had to earn my place. Sophia survived the first 48 hours. Small, 3 pounds, 2 ounces, but breathing with help. A miracle in the language of NICU nurses. I knew every tube, every monitor, every number that meant she was fighting. My mother came once. She stood at the isolation curtain, gloves on but never reaching through. "I'm not holding something broken," she said. Then she added, before leaving, "Don't ask me to pretend I don't know what she really is." Marcus was furious. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe she's just being Margaret." But I was lying. Even then, some part of me knew she wasn't talking about Sophia's health. She was talking about something older, something hidden. Then Dr. Patel called me into the conference room. Not the delivery room, not that kind of news. The other kind. "Ms. Vasquez," he said, using my professional name, which made everything more serious. "We ordered emergency genetic screening for Sophia due to an unusual presentation in her metabolic markers. The results came back with something unexpected. My stomach dropped. Not because I feared the worst for Sophia, but because I recognized the tone. The careful, measured tone doctors use when they're about to tell you something that rearranges reality. The screening shows Sophia carries a specific genetic disorder, one that runs in a very particular family line, Dr. Patel continued. But more importantly, Elena, the testing protocol required comparison with your own genetic profile. Given your nursing authorization for Sophia's care, he paused. Your profile doesn't match Sophia's as biological mother and child. The room went silent. Not empty, silent in the way a heart stops before it decides whether to continue. "I'm not Sophia's biological mother?" I asked. "You are her legal mother," Dr. Patel said quickly. "But the DNA suggests you were adopted, switched at birth approximately 28 years ago in this very hospital. The records are incomplete, but the markers are unmistakable." My throat tightened. My parents. According to the preliminary documentation we've recovered, documentation that's been altered, hidden, and partially destroyed. Your mother was not your legal guardian through adoption. She was involved in an illegal exchange scheme that occurred in Mercy, General's maternity ward in the late 1990s. The words didn't land immediately. They floated, then sank, then burned. "That's not possible," I whispered. "We found hidden adoption papers, fraudulent ones linked to your nursing, licensed through unauthorized authorization forms," Dr. Patel said. "Forms signed with your credentials, filed under your name, used to cover up the original exchange. My nursing license, the folder on the counter, the authorization forms I had never signed. Your mother refused to hold Sophia," I said, not as a question, but as the first piece of a puzzle finally clicking into place, because she recognized Sophia's genetic markers. Sophia belongs to my true biological family line. She knew that holding Sophia, acknowledging her, would expose the fraud through Sophia's very existence. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "The genetic disorder Sophia carries runs only in that biological family. Your mother recognized the markers. She knew that if Sophia's condition was fully documented, the family connection would become undeniable. So she refused," I said. "Not out of cruelty, out of fear. Fear that the truth you built your life on was actually a lie she created," Dr. Patel said. Then he added the sentence that made everything permanent. "You're not just Sophia's nurse, Elena. You're the proof her fraud failed."
That was the revelation. Not just that I was adopted. Not just that my mother had stolen my identity. But that my entire life, my nursing career, my credentials, my authority, had been used as camouflage for a crime that started before I could speak. My mother hadn't refused Sophia out of cruelty. She'd refused her because Sophia was the truth, living, breathing, undeniable. And Margaret had spent 28 years making sure I never became dangerous enough to hear it. But I had. And now, with Dr. Patel's confirmation and my nursing access to every record in this hospital, I had everything I needed, not for revenge, but for reality. Welcome back to Revenge Camera Stories, where some truths are born premature, but they still survive. If you've ever discovered that your life was built on someone else's hidden documents, share your story in the comments right now and tell me exactly where you're watching from. I read every single one. But let me back up. Before the ICU, before the conference room, before the folder, to the version of me that believed my mother's cruelty was just personality, because that's the version she never expected to become permanent. We lived in the kind of house that won garden awards and lost sleep over nothing visible, white trim, perfect hedges, a front door that never creaked because Marcus fixed every hinge before they could remind anyone that maintenance required effort, not just appearance. My mother, Margaret Whitmore Vasquez, directed every detail with the precision of someone who'd spent decades hiding that the foundation had cracks. Nathan got the spotlight. Birthday cards mentioned his promotions. Holiday photos centered him. When he forgot to call, she said he was overwhelmed. When I missed one family dinner, she told relatives I was self-absorbed, using my nursing career as an excuse for neglect. I was 24 when I realized my role wasn't just quiet. It was invisible until she needed someone to blame. Then I met Marcus. Not at a party. Not through family connections. At Mercy General's cafeteria, the same place. I ate at 4 a.m. between night shifts. Where he noticed not my face but my badge. Where he asked questions about patient outcomes and staffing ratios, not about appearance or family connections. We married 18 months later. Small ceremony. Not extravagant. My father, Thomas, had always taught me that substance outlasts spectacle, even when he stayed silent about everything else. Marcus was different then. Not perfect, just present. He held my hand at every appointment. He read baby books like they were engineering manuals, precise, respectful, excited about the responsibility rather than the performance. Then Sophia came early. 32 weeks. Emergency delivery. Marcus held my hand, not his mother. Not my father, just Marcus, steady. The only person in that room who never made me earn my presence.
Sophia survived. Small, 3 pounds, 2 ounces, but breathing with help. A miracle in the language of NICU nurses. My mother came once. She stood at the isolation curtain, gloves on but never reaching through. "I'm not holding something broken," she said. Then, before leaving, the curtain closed behind her. Perfume, the sentence that rearranged everything. Don't ask me to pretend I don't know what she really is. Marcus asked what it meant. I said I didn't know. That was a lie born from training. I'd spent years interpreting my mother's cruelty as personality, not strategy. But I was also a nurse, and nurses learn to observe before they react. Over the following days, I noticed things I shouldn't have been able to see. Not because I'm suspicious, but because I'm trained to read charts, to notice patterns, to understand that small inconsistencies reveal larger structures. The authorization forms in my nursing file, signatures, that looked like mine but weren't quite right. The property documents left open on Margaret's kitchen counter, transfer forms, using my license number, filed without my knowledge. The adoption folder, accidentally visible, never meant for me, containing papers that referenced my birth with details that didn't match my memories. I copied everything, not aggressively, professionally. The same way I documented patient care, precisely, without emotion. Because accuracy protects everyone. Then I called Rachel. Not a lawyer for drama, but my board colleague. The woman who'd drafted my parents' original endowment agreement. The person who understood both medicine and law. We met near Meridian Street, the same coffee shop where Marcus had first asked about my work, where Rachel listened without interrupting, then asked the only question that mattered. "Did you sign this year's proxy authorization?" The annual board document, the one allowing Marcus voting rights over hospital vendor contracts, had arrived weeks earlier. I'd left it unsigned, buried under prenatal paperwork, assuming it could wait. "No," I said. "You haven't." "I forgot," I said. Rachel smiled, the same faint, professional smile she'd used through every board crisis for a decade. "No," she said. "You remembered exactly when you needed to." She pulled out her binder, the color-coded one from every governance meeting, the one that contained the legal structure protecting my parents' endowment. "Your nursing license isn't just credentials, Elena," Rachel said. "It's evidence. The authorization forms Margaret filed using your identity. Those are fraud documents. The proxy you never renewed, that protects your voting authority. The genetic testing Dr. Patel ordered for Sophia that exposes the biological connection Margaret has been hiding for 28 years. So I'm not crazy," I said. "You're documented," Rachel corrected. There's a difference. That was the ally. Not convenient, not dramatic, but self-interested. Rachel protected the hospital's reputation, the board's integrity, and the legal structures she'd built. Helping me wasn't altruism. It was professional necessity. Over the following weeks, between Sophia's treatment, my recovery, and the slow rebuilding of my professional presence, I preserved everything. Not hidden, protected, the folder on the counter, the authorization forms, the unsigned proxy, the genetic results. Dr. Patel confirmed. Sophia's markers matching the biological family line. Margaret had stolen me from. Then I prepared for the confrontation, not revenge, but reality. Because Margaret had built her life on one assumption, that I would stay invisible. That I would never read my own file. That I would never understand my own authority. That I would never become dangerous enough to prove her wrong. She was about to learn that assumption was the only thing she ever really owned, and it was about to expire. If you've ever found documents, hidden in plain sight, papers that explain why you were treated differently, why your achievements were minimized, why your presence felt conditional, share your story in the comments right now and tell me exactly where you're watching from. Tell me, when you found the truth, did you stay silent to protect the image, or did you protect what was actually yours? But first, let me tell you what happened when Margaret finally walked back through the isolation. Curtain, this time not as director, but as someone facing the woman she never expected to become permanent. The second visit came without announcement. No flowers this time. No perfume. Just Margaret, standing at Sophia's isolette, her hands finally reaching through the glass. Not to hold Sophia, but to check the monitors, as if she could read the truth from numbers she didn't understand. I was sitting in the chair beside Sophia's bed, the same position I'd held for 72 hours, when Margaret spoke. Not to Sophia, to me. The doctor called, she said, about the genetic results. My hands didn't stop adjusting Sophia's blanket. Professional habit, calm hands, clear mind. He told you, I said, not a question. He told me I should prepare for questions, Margaret corrected. He didn't say you'd understand them. Then explain them, I said. Not for me, for Sophia. Margaret's expression didn't change. Not the polite mask, not the concerned parent performance. Just the stillness of someone realizing the stage had collapsed. You were adopted, she said. Not gently, not with apology. Just fact, delivered like a confession she expected me to accept without reaction. I know, I said. Her head turned, slow, measured, the kind of turn people make when they've heard the wrong answer. You don't understand, she said. Not adopted, switched, your birth records, your biological parents were altered. The hospital records show you were exchanged within 48 hours of delivery. The family you were born to, the Whitmores, are not the family that raised you. I understand, I said, because I read the documents. The ones with my nursing license used as authorization. The ones filed without my consent. The ones you kept in the folder I found. For the first time in my life, Margaret's mask slipped. Not into emotion, but into calculation. What are you going to do? She asked. Not I'm sorry, not can we talk, just, what are you going to do? I'm going to finish documenting Sophia's care, I said. I'm going to protect my nursing authority. I'm going to use the board proxy. I never signed to vote on every vendor contract, including yours. And I'm going to make sure my daughter never has to discover her identity through hidden papers. You'd destroy this family. This family destroyed itself, I said. I'm just documenting the cause. Then I added, the sentence that turned everything she said against her. The line that made the control permanent. You told me some things aren't meant to be held? Mom, you were right, just not about Sophia, about the lies you've been holding for 28 years. Margaret's hand, still reaching through the isolette glass, trembled once. Just once. Then she pulled back. Not quickly, not dramatically, just the slow withdrawal of someone, realizing the stage had been rebuilt without them. You don't understand what's at stake, she said. I understand everything, I said. That's the difference between being your daughter and being your evidence. That was the confrontation. Not violent, not theatrical, but precise. The kind of confrontation that happens when documentation replaces emotion, when professional authority replaces family hierarchy, when reality finally speaks in the language someone can no longer ignore. Margaret left without touching Sophia. Not because she was forbidden, because she finally understood that Sophia wasn't just her granddaughter. Sophia was proof. And proof doesn't need permission to exist. But the story wasn't finished. The confrontation in the ICU was only the beginning. The real work, the permanent work, happened in the days and weeks that followed. Dr. Patel completed the genetic documentation, not just for Sophia's care, but for the legal record. The board, using my authorized vote, terminated Marcus's consulting contract and froze all vendor, relationships pending investigation. Rachel filed the fraud documentation, not as revenge, but as protection. The authorization forms using my nursing license. The property transfers filed without consent. The adoption records altered to hide the original exchange. The investigation, quiet, professional, inevitable, revealed what Margaret had spent decades hiding. Not just that I was adopted,